Robert Tellis found guilty of murder of Jeff Gurman, the Las Vegas Review reporter, who was murdered in his side lawn. A man wearing blaze orange, a giant hat, and of course, Robert Tellis's signature cheap Nikes. They found him guilty, but not guilty enough to put him away forever. He's get parole in about 20 years. Joining me to discuss, Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent. What was your reaction to all of this? The fact it took 2 days to get to a verdict in a case that seemed pretty clear cut.
Well, it seemed to me that there was at least one juror that was really holding out, with all the information that they requested in terms of technical assistance to, blow up photos, additional look at other videos. They wanted to see his gait compared to the murderer's gait. They were really looking closely at this. And I really, quite frankly, admire juries that do this. They have a man's life in their hands, after all, and they should be making sure that they're 100% sure that there is no reasonable doubt in their minds. But I do believe, Tony, that 20-year parole was part of the negotiation that maybe went on with convincing that juror to plead guilty.
And that was the part that really kind of got me. From what I'm understanding from folks who talked with some of the jurors, was that there was two holdouts in the jury pool. And I guess the hang-up was the hair that they saw in the video. For some reason, they couldn't quite grasp that although Robert Tellis was wearing nothing short of a Halloween costume, that maybe he had a wig too, which only seems to make sense.
Right, a wig and glasses. The defense attorney even mentioned the glasses, but it's obvious if you want to cover your face and disguise yourself, which was 100% his goal. He knew there was construction going on in that area, thus he donned that orange vest and had that huge hat on. There was no way to see whether he had a wig on at all, except for in that video in the vehicle, and I truly believe that that's what he had on.
Construction in the area, does that explain the orange? Because I can't wrap my mind around why anyone would wear blaze orange to murder somebody in their yard.
Yeah, I believe that was the goal. I think he had done his site surveys around that area, we know, and there was construction going on. And I think he wanted to fit in as some sort of construction worker.
Why?
Well, I guess it would be more fitting in than somebody from head to toe in black, right? A black mask and everything.
I guess. I guess. I mean, you don't have to wear. You could just wear something normal, like somebody walking around. It's still. Oh, hey, there's a construction worker killing somebody in the yard over there. Still, you drive by. There's the blaze. Or you're gonna look like, oh, why is that construction worker in that yard killing someone? I don't think Robert Tellis is the brightest guy in the world with the decisions that he made, clearly. But he's one of those folks who believed that whatever he thought up in his mind was certainly going to be the right thing.
Well, I think the big takeaway, Tony, in this case for all prosecutors should be you have to address these issues. Everyone knew that video was put into evidence. Everyone knew that it looked a little grainy and it looked like whoever was driving that car had hair. Just, nip it in the bud early when you introduce it.
Let's take a listen to the prosecution talking about what exactly they believe should happen to Robert Tellis. This is let's take a look at the options first, then we'll talk about the prosecution, what they had to say about all of it.
Good afternoon. We're now moving into the penalty phase of the proceedings. You'll probably be relieved to learn much shorter than the trial phase. And what you'll be asked to do as jurors at this point is decide what the appropriate punishment should be for Mr. Tellis. In Nevada, there are 3 possible punishments for first-degree murder. So as a group and individually, you'll be selecting amongst 3 possible penalties. The least severe penalty for first-degree murder in Nevada is a sentence of 50 years in the Nevada Department of Corrections with parole eligibility after 20 years has been served. That's the least severe sentence. The next sentence is a life sentence in the Nevada Department of Corrections, again with parole eligibility after 20 years has been served. And the most severe sentence possible in this case is a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. And that sentence means just like it sounds. That would mean Mr. Tellis would spend the rest of his days in the Nevada Department of Corrections.
So what do you think it was that pushed them over the edge to say, okay, we will do the 20 years and then you're up for parole? Was it, the questioning of the hair? Was it the victim impact statements to keep this where it was? Because obviously it seems like it was a compromise of some sort.
It seems like a compromise. And I think it was really the totality of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense because, at the end of the day, these jurors are really taking the life from somebody. Even if they're spending it in prison, it's going to be a rough existence. And I think that many jurors, truly have empathy for these murderers.
Mm-hmm.
And those impact statements and the fact that he spent 3.5 hours in his diatribe, I'm sure some connected in some loose way to the humanity of him and what would be happening to him.
Do you think the jurors connected to the humanity of Robert Tellis, or did they connect to the narcissism of Robert Tellis? Because I always find it's like birds of a flock when it comes to narcissists. I find other narcissists relate to other narcissists when they're speaking or presenting something. It's like, oh, I think this weird way too, and somehow I'm going to. There's another one over there, just like me. We may never get along, but I feel I feel that person. And I think this weird way that everyone else seems to not think like I do. That's what I wonder about with juries and things like this. I mean, it seems scary. I don't know if narcissism is just more prevalent in our society today than it used to be. But it does feel like some of these folks, you can explain a situation of something a narcissist did to you, and most people who are not in that category go like, oh my gosh, they can empathize. But if you explain that same sort of situation of what a narcissist did to a narcissist, they'll agree with the narcissist more times than not. But my experience has been. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think, Tony, that people that truly suffer from the disorder of narcissistic personality
Mm-hmm.
disorder are very rare. Again, I'm not a doctor, but just in speaking with doctors and dealing with them in different cases, I think it's actually fairly rare.
Mm-hmm.
And then of those who actually commit murder.
Sure.
So I think that on a jury, it'd be a rare thing to have somebody that would truly have that disorder on the jury. But I think it isn't rare to have jurors that empathize because at the end of the day, most people are good people. Sure. And they actually can feel sorry for people and be caught up in them. And again, it was brilliant, I think, that he had 3.5 hours just where he could just pontificate about all his wrongs that were done to him. And I think it clearly might have touched some jurors.
I'm just wondering what part of that touched the jurors. Because at the end of the day, I still don't fully understand his story. I've been asking everybody, like, does anybody really grasp what he was trying to say or why he was being framed? Because, I mean, I guess in a twisted way, I kind of get it of the way he's thinking this all adds up. But it's like 1 + 2 doesn't equal 3 in his mind. It equals like 8 or something. And he's fully believing that. There's just so many pieces to his own story that just don't make sense. I loved the closing where the attorney or the attorney for the state made the line, and you think they're going to go after that guy or do it all for that guy? Like everybody's going to put their life on the line, their career, their everything for that guy. That to me, I thought was very powerful.
Yes, I think it is too. No, I agree with you. Look, his story was a hot mess. It was all over the place. It definitely tried to play up, this young person who built themselves self from nothing to achieving a law degree. I mean, he touched on a lot of things that I wonder if people could relate to.
Hmm.
You know, being a blue collar worker, if you will, and then achieving a law degree and then achieving, other things. Did that touch anyone? Did, his mannerisms in some way, you got me. But I'm just saying that in interviewing jurors at the end of trials, many of them have that strong piece of empathy.
Hmm.
And just the fact that the hair held at least two of these jurors up for that period of time told me, they were really dissecting to make sure that this was their man.
Yeah, I mean, I get empathy. I feel like you're probably right, but there's also stupidity too, where it just feels like, okay, come on, people. Like, I can feel empathy for people when they deserve it. This is not a guy I feel empathy for. It just seems like he's just keeping digging and digging and digging. I have empathy for his kids. I have empathy for his wife that have this monster in their life. The kids have no choice. This is dad. This is the hand that you were dealt. But also, if you're the other parent and you're trying to protect those children, in my world, if somebody did this, and you're seeing this person for who they are, the last person I want around my kids is this guy. Even if he is dad, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. What did you think of the wife going up there? I'm surprised they're even like still together. But what did you think of her testimony in the victim impact statements, asking for a lighter sentence so he can somehow, at some point in life, maybe be involved with his kids?
Well, I think it was moving, and like you said, anyone who would get up and make such statements, either they're completely uh, baffled as well. In other words, they buy in to what he has to say, and they're just controlled and manipulated by him, which is what I think.
Yeah.
And that's why they make the statement, because no matter what the proof is, and we've seen it time and again, where loved one, family members, spouses, parents, they do not believe their child committed the heinous crime or their spouse committed the heinous crime they're accused of. And it's because at the end of the day, they're manipulated
Yeah.
and they absolutely can't buy into it.
Yeah, they're too close to the fire, and I do truly feel horrible for those people. I know I've been in a situation not where anybody killed somebody, but where you're close to it, you don't see it because it's a slow, insidious thing with people like that. Until you're out of it, you're like, oh wow, I did not realize all of that. I'm interested to get your thoughts though on the wife of Robert Tellis versus like the mom of Robert Tellis, because the mom's in tears, and I can't imagine being the parent of Robert Tellis. His wife, it almost kind of felt like, she knew he was found guilty. He hasn't been around for a while. I think she's kind of liking life without Robert. She seemed pretty like just kind of, yeah, I'd love him to do that at some point. It'd be great to be around with the kids, but she was kind of like bubbly in a situation where your husband's never coming back, or it's going to be a very long time.
Yeah, I think that some people do better at understanding the ramifications sooner than
Hmm.
other parents. I mean, I just can't imagine as a parent, if you truly trusted and loved your child,
Hmm.
how you ever come to terms with that. A spouse is a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And I think in this case, I think the best way to state it, she came to terms,
Yeah.
but she was going to stick by her man. And then I say this kind of jokingly. I always wonder if there's any deals in the background after watching what happened with Asa Ellerup. I mean,
Yes.
these
Yeah.
these you know uh, picture these films, these short stories,
Hmm.
these Netflix. They're on top of these types of cases, and this is one that I think would attract a lot of viewership because it's so weird. And a journalist was involved trying to,
Hmm.
break stories about public corruption. And people are fed up with public corruption in this country right now.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of felt like she was relieved Like, and maybe that is it. I mean, you're sitting there for 3 years wondering what the fate of everything is going to be, and you finally found out. I'm guessing she probably already came to terms with what may happen here, and I could see that being a relief. Just having the answer, just knowing what's going to happen going forward. And if you really don't want him in your life, and you don't want to have to mess around with, someone having some sort of leverage with divorce, pretty much got that. You're pretty much scot free going forward any way you want, with the way that this all settled out. Let's take a look one more time, or for our time here, at the prosecution talking about what they believe should happen to Robert Tellis and why.
No one wins when crimes like these are committed. But one of the things that has to be abundantly clear about this is we're only here because of the actions of one person and one person alone. And it's the defendant. It was the manner in which the defendant chose to handle the situation that has created this ripple effect on his family as well as Jeff's. One of the things, when you do this long enough in our line of work, you see a lot of people come through the system. And the state would submit to you, he is not similarly situated to a lot of people. He is highly educated. He comes from a good, loving family. I'm not saying everyone does, but his upbringing is pretty good. When you think about the situation that he was in, the world wasn't going to end. He had simply lost an election. And the way Robert Tellis chose to handle this was devastating. And it was his choice and his choice alone. No one forced his hand. And so one of the things that we need to talk about is this idea of what they mentioned, retribution, redemption versus retribution. When you think about what happened in this case, think about the act that he committed upon Jeff. What was that? It was an act of retribution. Robert Tellis decided to be judge, jury, and literally the executioner of a man who was simply trying to do his job, to report the news. He executed him. He didn't have to do that.
Was this ever about the election and his job, or was this all about an affair? And the big bomb was about to go off, and he wanted to find some way to try and stop it.
So I truly believe it was his world crumbling. I think he took such immeasurable a joy and feeling of accomplishment at having this government position. I think he probably had, desires to continue not only in that area of government, but maybe higher areas of government. And I think his ego was completely trampled upon when this happened. And I think that was the implosion more than the affair situation. But Tony, I wanted to add, in this closing, I wish prosecutors, and I'm sorry to sound like a Monday morning quarterback, but I really do wish prosecutors would focus on the victim. Yeah. Again, his whole statement, talking about how well educated he was and what a great family he came from. So now you're getting your jurors to empathize again. Why aren't we talking about Jeff German? This wonderful man who walks out of the house, who was stabbed 7 times, who has his throat slit. I know that's all very graphic. That's what they need to think about. Who's taken away from his sister and his family and had done nothing wrong. That's what my argument would have been. I would have wanted everybody to fall in love with Jeff German and feel terrible for his family.
I completely agree. I feel like that kind of fell short a little bit, and I think that's part of why we ended up getting the sentence that we did. But, well, game over on this one. We'll maybe be covering this again in 20 years when he's back out again and somebody ruins his life because they call him out on his shit. It'll be fascinating. I wonder how jail will treat this individual. We'll have to find out. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.